Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you. At the age of 64, I hope certain things don't stop working. But today I would like to talk about looking for peace of mind. But I must stress that I passionately believe in Winston Churchill's definition of success, which is that success in life is stumbling from one disaster to another while maintaining one's enthusiasm. So, God willing, I stand before you with that. But I hope the other thing that is always there is that sense of fear. We heard about it earlier. But the importance of doing something important enough that you're frightened of failing. Today I would like to talk about my journey in search of peace of mind. As I said, I'm 64. I'm still enthusiastic about life. But what is it that I've been looking for? And I think it is that sense of peace of mind. I'm not saying I'm successful, but it's about opening the window to what is possible, to look at the different journeys that one might go on. And I think wisdom and peace of mind often comes from one's father. So there I am with my father, an English colonel, and I remember talking to him. I said, "What was the most interesting lesson that you ever went to at school?" He said, there was this fellow, he had this huge sweatband, and he always used to write on the board with his back to him. And one day, a wasp landed on his armpit, and suddenly it became interesting. But what happened was, the wasp dropped dead before he put his arm down. And, you sort of think of your father and the advice they'll give you. And his only advice really was with my children when I asked him about their education. He said, please make sure they play sports at which they can get seriously hurt. So I've done my best. But really, I was sent off still as a little boy, dropped off in an English boarding school. You're like a puppy having been brought up in Africa, where life was fun and passionate. And my peace of mind evaporated as I had to get the right hospital corner on my bed, opposed to finding scorpions in my shoes. But I was exceptionally lucky at school, because when I was about 16 to talk about my future, my housemaster, he took me aside and he said, "Anthony, let's talk about your future." So I was imagining that, yes, I'd become a rock star or, go to space. He said, "But let's get one thing quite clear. You are much too stupid to go to university." So I went, wow, freedom! Because, I've always wanted to impress people. So I thought I could become a bullfighter. It looks good. Anyway, there I am, fighting bulls. There's my head and there's my foot. So I thought, maybe peace of mind and bullfighting don't go together. So when I was 22, I took a one-way ticket on the Trans-Siberian Express to Japan. Could I ask, how many of you have taken one-way tickets? Are there many of you? Yeah, I thought there would be. Isn't it that gorgeous sensation, as we heard? We're only on a one-way ticket here. And I got to Japan. I love being in Japan, but one day I'd think, why do I want to live in Japan? And the next day I think, God, I want to leave it. Do you ever have that feeling about Hong Kong? Well, in those days, I was going out with a girl called Sue Little. She was very nice, but I thought if I went to Singapore, all the girls would find me devastatingly attractive. So, anyway, I went to Singapore, nobody found me attractive, and I rang Sue, said, "Come and join me." And Sue said, "Get knotted, you left." And all of a sudden, I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, I couldn't sleep. And I thought, what is it that's changed in my life? Why is my peace of mind so bad? So I came up with my peace of mind chart. Missing Sue, desire to marry her, desire to fly to Tokyo. And what I started to realize was if I played a good game of rugby or went skydiving, my desire to marry Sue dropped dramatically. And I started to realize that actually it was one's belonging and recognition that was important. And that was my stomach, having been spending much too much time in Tokyo. And I thought, what do I do for my peace of mind? Because I didn't feel happy with a stomach like that. So I decided to go off on a camel safari up into northern Kenya. And that was really the first time I saw the Maasai. Some of you may have seen Emmanuel. But I finally saw people who had substance without arrogance. My entire education had been arrogance without an iota of substance. And I thought, wow, what is it that we've lost? What is it that I've lost? And that's when I met Joe Nombri from Papua New Guinea. And he said, would you like to go to my village? I said, I'd love to. I'd love to go and find out more about maybe what we've lost connection with. So there I am 30 years ago. And when I sat down with Joe Nombri, I started to ask what was important in his life. And what he said to me, it was my territory. He knew his identity because of what he'd protected. And he talked about people who left their territory. They started fires in Port Moresby. They lost their identity. And I thought, what was my territory? 2 bars in Roppongi where the women are friendly? And I started to think maybe I should go and expand my own territory. So I decided to hitchhike from from way up north in Xinjiang. But it started to make me think that maybe in life we're born with trust in ourselves, trust in Mother Nature, and trust in others. And these are like big airbags, but they gradually deflate. And what we do is we go and grab a cardboard box. I need a new job. I need a new relationship. I need a new car. And I started to think that maybe my peace of mind was totally related to my trust in myself. Could I create a trust? Could I feel that I was being important? And what I found really was in organizations, would they give me that sense of trust? Because what I found is in organizations, you have the chairman saying, we're heading for paradise. Our organization is so successful. And all the employees see is bullshit bridge and fantasy applications and HR Island and Training Island and, So it started to make me think, if this is what's happening in organizations, what is it? There's got to be something more to it. And that's really when I started to think that maybe success is around actually something much more ancient, something that we've forgotten, and that is Eriko Lekasana. And I invited him to England to teach. Because what I discovered is once someone's got a map, they know what they're protecting, they know what they're doing, they have a sense of motivation. And some of you may remember Emmanuel here a little time ago. And he talked about his own identity of respect, responsibility, and courage. And what I think is really what has happened to us is that we've been caught in that swamp of civilization. We've sort of been blindfolded that if we get an education, if we require rituals, if we get ownership, we are going to be someone. And England is probably one of the worst places for that. I remember meeting someone talking enthusiastically, and he said, we must get together. Here's my card. So I rang him and I said, gosh, I'd love to meet for lunch. He said, look, didn't you realize I was being English? You are the most boring little man I've ever come across. And for that, I decided to set up the CockUp Club. Because I think we need to realize we want to go out there to challenge what we believe in. Because what I see really is that civilization exists by splitting power, wealth, and status. But what I think we need is the power of curiosity, the wealth of passion, and that status of courage. And it's not about having one of those, it's about having all 3 of them on a daily basis, of seeing what you can go and do. Where would you like to take that passion? Because I think that swamp is drying up now. So I had a real job once. I was manager of the world skipping rope champion. He could skip for 5 hours and he could do all sorts of other great things like that. And basically, I thought, that is not my life that I want to do forever. So I started going on journeys. This is hitchhiking from Xinjiang down to Hong Kong, along the Silk Road. Unfortunately, I had a few too many beers and I fell out of a window and paralyzed myself. But what I sort of saw was that one's got to be stupid, but also one needs that sense of stepping out. Where do we want to step out? Where would we like our shadows to fall? And from that journey, I decided to walk across Papua New Guinea. On this journey, we had 24 bottles of wine and no food. There was my wife, my best man, and Philip. And that man complained every step of the way. We're lost. I don't trust you. We're going to die. And I saw that he had no trust. He had a padlock on his backpack. And you know, when you're in the middle of a river, you don't want people saying, I know the rope is going to break. So when I got back from Papua New Guinea, someone said, would I like to come and climb this 7,000-meter mountain? I said, I'd love to. I'd never climbed a mountain, but let's try it. Let's see what it would be like. And much to my amazement, I got up to the top. And I then set up the first training program called I Will Not Complain. Because, you know, the most important thing in life, I think, is that people must not complain. They must take responsibility. They must have identity. They must have that sense of courage. But what I saw is you can create teams. You give people great experiences. But they still say, who am I? Where do I fit in? What is important? And that is now my sort of passionate belief. That peace of mind comes from actually connecting oneself from where we came from. It's not some new technology. It's not a new app. It's about actually understanding how you earn the spear or hand out your feathers. It's about knowing from an early age, do we know what we're responsible for? Do we know where we want to get to? And what I ask people to do is to draw their territory. And these are some Aboriginals in Australia who I asked to draw their territory. And this lady talked about mainstream society. Her parents were part of the stolen generation. And basically she was brought up with an education, but she only had one eye open. And what she wanted to do was to come back to fulfillment, to knowing who she was, to knowing who one is culturally aware, coming home to country. And I think all of us, I desperately want to do, is to find out what is that identity, what is that journey, what is that trust that we have to have in ourselves and others to fulfill our destiny, to take control of what we can do, because it's out for all of us to achieve it. And is that really around learning from others? Is it about thinking both ways? This is another Aboriginal. Here he is in the office. He needs the stories of his families. He needs his culture. He needs his strength. And no more is this more obvious than in Africa. Is it your culture or is it what you learn? And going back to my father's words, make sure your children play sports at which they can get seriously hurt. There I am throwing my son off a bridge. And God willing, he's there to thank me for it. But you know, I think we have to today reach out if we want that sense of peace of mind. This is my other son, learning respect, learning to protect, learning that courage is what is important. And there he is at 16. I send my children to live with the Maasai, 5 weeks in Africa. But 1 week is walking with the warriors. Because today I think we all need to be brave. We need to go in search of our dreams, whatever they might be. We have that freedom of choice, and that ignites our passions. Because all we are is a collection of our ideas, of our journeys, and where we have been, and the people that we have been with. And I'm still doing things. This is hitchhiking with my son to Berlin last year. This is with my daughter getting married last year. And there she is with her new husband. But all of that is around, I think, going back to our roots. I've just been on the Trans-Siberian Express, going back to where that journey was, feeling that sense of wonder. And with that, I leave you with the 3 beliefs I have. For peace of mind, we need to be curious, we need to be passionate, and we need courage to do it and inspire others. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you.